Good morning, dear ones. It is so great to be with you, and I am so grateful for Reverend Dr. PJ for saying yes. So wonderful to be with all of you in this absolutely beautiful place. Wow, just gorgeous. So thanks so much for spending some time with me this morning, honoring and celebrating diversity in our experiences. Great music, by the way, guys. You just are awesome. Wow, that's such a great song. Thank you for that. So when we hear the word diversity, often we think of we think of ethnicity, and we think of sexual orientation, and we think of religious beliefs and those kinds of things. And in June and July, we're celebrating Pride. I think y'all did it this month or are going to do it. We're doing it next month in San Diego. And I think June is officially Pride Month. And somebody asked me not long ago, so our festival in San Diego is in July. So if Pride Month is in June, why do you do it in July? And I said, well, I think because we want people to go to I'm from San Diego, and so we want people to go to San Francisco and Long Beach and Los Angeles and then come to San Diego and spend their money in July. So, and I don't know if that's true or not, but that's my story. So, I'm sticking to it, right, yes. But this morning I'd like to share some ideas with you on diversity, honoring and celebrating diversity in our experiences, in this thing called life. I'm so glad you're with me this morning because I'm going to talk about things we don't ordinarily talk about in New Thought. I love to stir the pot. I love to talk about our human experience and talk about grief and loss and about forgiveness and about being enough and all of those things. So I'm so glad you're with me this morning for this. In this teaching that we call New Thought or religious science, we tend to focus on the positive, that we tell ourselves and others, despite appearances, that all is well, that everything is in divine order, that everything is as it should be, that it's all good. And when someone dies, firstly, we don't use the D word. We say they made their transition, they've gone on to their next experience, and we say that they're out of pain. They're in a better place. It's all good. And all of those statements are absolutely true. But the fact is, as we experience this experience, our hearts may be breaking. So is there a way for us to recognize the truth as we walk through these experiences in our lives, but also to honor and nurture ourselves through these human experiences? Because we have those emotions. We have joy and passion and wonder and excitement. And we have grief and loss and heartbreak. Is there a way for us to embrace and welcome all of it? I would suggest for you that yes, there is. There's a Zen saying, may we exist like a lotus at home in muddy water. Thus we bow to life as it is. Can we bow to life as it is and remember our truth, but also nurture and embrace ourselves moving through whatever the situation is, whatever the mud is? Now, in no way am I suggesting that we stay stuck in the mud, because it's so important for us to experience it and keep moving forward. But as one of my favorite authors, Debbie Ford, once wrote, what we can't be with won't let us be. So we're talking today about being with those emotions and those feelings so that we can keep moving through the mud and move forward. In one of my favorite books, and I bet yours as well, The Gifts of Imperfection, Brené Brown talks about perfectionism. Now, it's her book, not mine, but I'm just not sure that there's such a thing as imperfect, because I believe that I I am perfect just exactly as I am on my path, as are you, but it's her book, not mine, so I'm not gonna fight with Brené Brown. But she talks about perfectionism in quotation marks, that we think of that very often as everything is wonderful. It's a great day. It's rainbows and teddy bears. Everything is wonderful. But listen to this quote from her book. Perfectionism is not the same thing as striving to be your best. Perfectionism is not about healthy achievement and growth. Perfectionism is a belief that if we live perfect, look perfect, and act perfect, we can minimize or avoid the shame of blame, judgment, and shame. But it's a shield. Perfectionism is a 20-ton shield that we lug around thinking it will protect us, when in fact, it's the thing that really prevents us from taking flight. Do we allow ourselves to grieve, to hurt, to be angry, to be disappointed? Do we allow ourselves to do that, or do we put on the armor and everything's wonderful and I'm just not going to do that? Do we allow ourselves to not be charming and sparkling? I am charming and sparkling and patient and understanding and unconditional love and all of those other things. But the truth is, and don't tell anybody, I am hateful and surly and cranky and impatient, and talk to me when we're delayed 2 hours trying to get on a flight from Houston to Dallas, and you'll see that I'm hateful and surly and all those other things. Because that's who we are. That's who we are. But what we can't be with won't let us be. It's so wonderful to see all of you in this very room, and it's so wonderful to see all of you who are with us online or are listening later. We've been through a lot. We have been through a lot. It's been 2+ years of this experience. I love to travel, and I love to come and visit and meet new people. And I especially love it now because it was about 2 years that my suitcase was sitting in the corner weeping quietly because I wasn't going anywhere because there was no place to go. But we missed a lot. We missed births and graduations and weddings and memorial services and all of those things. There's got to be some, as we now get back into it, and I was talking with a friend who works for United Airlines in San Diego, and he said the entire world was here, because I flew out Friday, and he said the entire world was here this morning. So the good news is we're getting back out there again, but can we allow ourselves to recognize what we missed and what we lost as we're getting back into life, and recognize that and honor that within ourselves, that we lost that time, that we lost the opportunity to have those experiences. Maybe someone in your life made their transition or died during that time. My mother died January of 2 years ago in the hospital, and it was absolutely time, but nonetheless, so the doctor called me and said, time is short, and I said, well, can I come and be with her? And he said, yes, I can. Yes, you can, but we're going to have to put you in a hazmat suit with gloves and masks and all the rest of that. And I said, I'm just going to I didn't say this to him, but I'm just going to hold her in the light and absolutely know that it's time and she's okay. But still, we didn't have very often, we didn't have the opportunity to say goodbye. Can we feel that and experience that, and then ultimately release that as we move forward into the next wonderful experiences in our lives? This subject is really close to home for me because my husband and I had been together for 33 years, and being a nurse, he took care of everybody else, as they do, but didn't take care of himself so well. And so he was diagnosed with colorectal cancer about 7 years ago. The chemo, and if you've had experience with chemo, you know that very often the chemotherapy does wonderful things to the tumors, but terrible things to our physical bodies sometimes. And so my husband died in the airport in Houston on the way home from the Anton Conference. It'll be 5 years. Wow. It'll be 5 years in this October. If you've ever had someone die in a state other than where they live, you know there's some extra paperwork and documentation and all the rest of that. So he died, flew from Kansas City to Houston, and he was in a wheelchair. He was very thin, very weak, but really felt like he wanted to go with me. So we made the connection, got into Houston. I went to check on our seat assignments. When I came back, he was unresponsive. So went back to the desk. They called the ambulance. They came in and got him, were able to revive him, but so they could transport him to the hospital. But on the way to the hospital, his heart stopped again, and they weren't able to revive him. And he died, I guess, in the ambulance on the way to Memorial Hermann in Houston. Got a hotel, got all that taken care of, got a hotel room, slept kind of sorta, flew home the next day with 4 suitcases instead of 2, because of course I had his as well as mine, and got home and sat down and started to grieve. And my ego said, no, you're a religious science minister. Everything is in divine order. Everything is as it should be. It's all good. So why is my heart breaking? And so I really and so this is where this topic came from, and this is where the workshop came from that I'll talk about in a little while. The requirement within my soul to recognize the truth, but also to allow myself to have those feelings, to feel the grief, to feel the loss, to feel the gratitude certainly, but to feel all of those feelings so that I can move forward. That's so incredibly important for us. And not feel guilty. What are you doing? What are you feeling? You're not supposed to feel grief about that. You're not supposed to feel loss about that. How often do we should on ourselves about what we're feeling or about what we're doing? You've probably heard the terms toxic positivity and spiritual bypass. Spiritual bypass is also referred to denial in holy drag. I love the concept of that we don't look at those feelings. But they come out, and I'll talk about this in a minute. They come out in surprising and wonderful ways. Do you have a junk drawer at your house? I know, right? Everybody I know has at least a drawer, if not a closet, if not a garage, if not a storage bin, right? And I love the concept of this because, okay, so in my junk drawers, there's the Phillips head screwdriver that I couldn't find, or there's the tape measure. Who comes in the middle of the night and takes the tape measures? Well, chances are there's at least one of them in the junk drawer. And it works its way to the bottom. And every time you open the drawer and close the drawer, the stuff moves around. And so it works a little toward the top, and it works a little toward the front. And it just keeps working its way. And then it's on the top, or it's at the front, and you can find it. But consider our emotions that we don't allow ourselves to deal with, like the junk drawer. And that grief, that anger, that loss, that hurt is in there. It hasn't gone anywhere. It's just kind of lurking. And then you go to Costco and you're in a hurry and you just need to get the quinoa salad and the milk and the crackers. And you've only got so much time, and so you get to the front and you've got your cart out and you're good to go, and there's somebody in the entrance with the cart parked sideways that can't find their card. Well, it was here a minute ago, and you just explode. Or you're going to Waco on the 35E and you're running late and some fool is in the left-hand lane doing 55 miles an hour. Or, because that's where road rage comes from. It has nothing to do with what actually happened in that moment. It's that repressed and unexamined and unfelt anger and hurt and grief that just bubbles up in surprising and wonderful ways. It's the leftover pizza. What happened to the rest of that, the other half of that pizza? I was saving that for tomorrow night. What happened to the rest of the Ben & Jerry's? I was just going to eat half the container. Of course, it doesn't keep. You know, ice cream just doesn't keep. So you really should. And once you open it, you should just go ahead and eat that. But so often our emotions that we don't allow ourselves to feel come out in these most amazing ways. And we look back and say, what happened there? And it's the junk drawer. It's these emotions that we don't allow ourselves to look at. It all requires forgiveness, but not until we're ready. One of the workshops that I do is forgiveness as a process, not an event. And dealing with grief, dealing with loss, dealing with forgiveness, I believe absolutely are processes. There's no magic wand. Okay, I'm not grieving anymore. Well, Jerry, it's been almost 5 years. You know, and I'm doing really well. I have this most amazing life. I have an awesome new relationship. And just every once in a while, out of the blue, for 20 or 30 seconds or a minute or two, and then we go on. And if you've ever had this experience, and it's someone's death, a spouse, a partner, a child. It might be a job that you absolutely loved and adored that ended. It might be a relationship and they're not dead, but the relationship changed and it's not part of your life anymore. Just any time that there's a change that we weren't looking for or would have consciously chosen, there's the opportunity and the necessity to allow ourselves to grieve. It might be our relationship with a parent. Today we celebrate Father's Day, and last month we celebrated Mother's Day. And if your relationship with your parents were not Hallmark cards, and I am pretty fortunate in that mine basically were. My parents were way more loving to me than I was to myself. They were welcoming and nurturing and loving, but not everybody's experience was like that. And so if today, especially with fathers, but mothers as well, if these holidays bring up stuff, to use a purely metaphysical term, if this is bringing stuff up for you, there's the opportunity to recognize it and feel it and heal it. And whether that was last week or 60 years ago, if we're carrying it with us and it doesn't bring us peace, there's the opportunity to look at it and feel it so we can heal it. I'm in a group on Facebook for widows and widowers, and there are a lot of posts, and I comment every once in a while, and there have been several that I've noticed recently about life will never be the same. And that was big for me. It will not. We had an amazing 33 years. We had a couple of iffy years, but overall it was wonderful. But life will never be the same, because life will never be the same. It will be wonderful again if we have the death of a dear one, if we have a job change, whatever it is. When there's a change, it won't be the same, because it won't be the same. But how important it is to recognize that it won't be the same, but it will be good again, just different. Just different. So this afternoon, we're going to do a little bit of a deeper dive into this stuff that we don't like to talk about. We'll make sure that there are Kleenex boxes available. And this is not the usual rainbows and teddy bears and airy-fairy stuff very often that we talk about. This is more heart-based, but I'll bet you'll lose a couple of 100 pounds by the time we finish, because when we allow ourselves to do this, it brings lightness and fresh air and remarkable love from this thing called life into our souls and into our beings, so that we can move forward and just stand a little taller and feel a little lighter. So I would love it if you'd be with me for this. I always learn amazing new things, and I bet you will as well. So why does it matter? Why are we going to put ourselves through this? Why don't we just light ourselves on fire? Why should we do this? Again, quoting Debbie Ford, what we can't be with won't let us be. Do you remember the Sufi mystic poet Rumi's writing about the guest house? I need to print that and carry that with me. But the crux of it is this being human is a guest house with the joy and the passion and the wonder and the anger and the hurt and the guilt and the grief and all the rest of that, all of it, and welcome it all in. Welcome it all in. Because that's about the richness of this thing called life, is to allow and welcome all of it, and listen for the joys, and listen for the blessings, and listen for the gifts. So awesome to be with you all this morning. Thank you so much. Namaste.